Three numbers appeared on Anthropic's launch page yesterday: 43.3, 30.2, and 1,861. Which one should make you switch? Hold that thought. One came from coding, one from unfamiliar puzzles, and one from professional work. Together they look decisive. Without the rules, they are decoration. A benchmark is not an intelligence meter. It is a receipt from one obstacle course, with one harness, budget, and grader. Change the course, and the winner can change. Anthropic added a simpler claim: near Fable capability at half the price. It may be the release's most important line, and it's easiest to misunderstand. I will decode the numbers, trace the effort dial, and show the official rows Opus loses. Then we will test an uncomfortable safety claim. Anthropic's most aligned model hallucinated more on one benchmark. But first, do not choose from the headline. I am holding the Fable verdict until the final decision grid. The useful question is not which model is smartest, it is which model finishes your work at a repeatable price. Anthropic released Claude Opus 5 on July 24th. The API name is simply Claude-Opus-5. Its base price is $5 per million input tokens and $25 per million output tokens. That matches Opus 4.8. Fable costs twice as much. That is our first useful anchor, half Fable's token price. But the product changed too. Opus is now the default on Claude Max and the strongest model on Claude Pro. It is available through Anthropic, Amazon, Google Cloud, and Microsoft Foundry. The context window can hold an enormous project. The output ceiling can carry a long deliverable. Keep the exact limits on screen. Thinking is on by default. Normal effort is high, not maximum. Fast mode runs roughly 2.5 times faster. It also doubles the base token price and is first-party API only. So half the price needs an asterisk. It compares standard Opus with Fable. Long context, high effort, tools, and retries still move the bill. A restaurant can have every ingredient and still serve an expensive tasting menu. The useful number is the final check. But how do we read that check before a leaderboard turns it into marketing? A benchmark is an obstacle course. It asks fixed tasks, runs the answers through a defined setup, then applies a grader. That setup is the harness, the model's pit crew. It controls the tools, retries, surviving context, and stop rule. The effort setting is the fuel dial. Opus offers low, medium, high, extra high, and max. But more effort means more reasoning tokens, latency, and cost. It does not guarantee the same gain on every task. Cost per task is the whole bill for completing one job, including tokens and tool turns. A cheaper model can lose by wandering. An expensive one can win by finishing cleanly. Anthropic plots performance vertically and task cost horizontally. Each dot is one effort level. The useful point is where another dollar stops buying meaningful improvement. One catch matters. The headline Frontier bench result was an internal run with a named harness, cloud backend, and repeated attempts. Safety refusals could route to Opus 4.8. Those details do not invalidate a score, they define it. Ask 4 questions before trusting a bar. What task? What tools? What budget? What grader? So how large is the coding jump once the course has a name? Frontier Bench gives an agent difficult software tasks and checks whether the work succeeds. This is not trivia. The model inspects a project, uses tools, changes code, and faces an evaluator. Opus 4.8 set the baseline. Guess how much of the course Opus 5 completed? The answer is 43.3%, more than double its predecessor's result in Anthropic's run. That is the first mystery number. Put the full comparison on screen. Fable and GPT 5.6 Sol sit lower on this particular test. Cursor Bench tells a tighter story. At maximum effort, Opus lands within 0.5% of Fable's peak score at half the reported task cost. Those statements can coexist. Different courses expose different skills. A trail runner can dominate a mountain and meet the same rival on a track. The launch table also shows gains over Opus 4.8 on multimodal and multilingual software engineering. One uses visual evidence, the other crosses programming and natural languages. My opinion? The leap over Opus 4.8 is the cleanest coding signal. The Fable comparison remains benchmark dependent. One universal ranking flattens several races into one trophy. But does the lead survive when success means finishing ordinary business work? Professional work benchmarks try to measure something closer to a deliverable. GBP Val-AA compares valuable work against other answers. Its score is a rating, not a percentage. That explains the strange 4-digit number. Automation Bench asks whether an agent completes a business workflow end-to-end. Think workbook in, actions taken, owners notified, and usable summary out. OS World gives the model a computer. Clicking the right button matters more than describing it. 3 courses, 3 units. Never average them. Now guess how much Anthropic says Opus needed to beat Fable's best computer use result. Just over 1/3 of Fable's cost per task. That is stronger than half-price tokens. It suggests the model can reach the result with a smaller total budget. The other rows point the same way. Opus leads Anthropic's professional work rating. At low effort, it also passes more automation tasks than any other model in Anthropic's comparison. Keep the exact tables on screen. The numbers should clarify the decision, not overwhelm it. However, these are benchmark tasks, not your payroll, browser stack, or approval policy. The curve tells you where to start. Your own completion rate tells you where to deploy. So why does one puzzle score jump from almost nothing to 30? But halfway through, the case changes. We have priced the ingredients, decoded the courses, and seen the coding and completed work results. Still ahead, the official losses, the safety versus hallucination paradox, and the decision grid I am saving for the end. Now the strangest row. ARC-AGI-3 places an agent inside unfamiliar, interactive, turn-based game environments. It gets no natural language instructions. It must explore, acquire the goal on the fly from meaningful feedback, build a working model of the environment, and adapt its actions. That is very different from completing a static transformation grid. Opus 4.8 barely moved the meter. Opus 5 scored 30.2%. That is the second opening number. Anthropic describes it as 3 times the next best model. ARC Prize published a dedicated result page. However, do not mix this with ARC-AGI-2. The version is part of the test. On the older suite, another model leads. That counterexample comes next. The jump is exciting because it suggests stronger test time adaptation. It is not proof of general intelligence. One benchmark samples one kind of novelty under one execution setup. The right response is replication, not disbelief or worship. The first half earned attention. The second asks whether the headline survives the rows Anthropic did not win. But what happens when we turn to the red cells? Correction number 1. Opus 5 did not sweep the field. But the official system card contains several comparisons where another model leads. That is the map of where paying more may still buy something. On SWE-Bench Pro, Fable is slightly ahead. On Frontier Code, they are separated by a rounding error. On Deep SWE, GPT 5.6 Sol leads both Claude models. Fable also edges Opus on Humanity's Last Exam without tools. Those rows cover coding and closed-book knowledge under different evaluation conditions. On the length-adjusted Health Bench Professional column, Mythos leads Opus by 6.2 points, but the raw column reverses it. Opus scores 73.4 versus 70.3 for Mythos. On ARC-AGI-2, GPT is ahead. Put every exact score on screen. Never say exactly 6 losses. The table is not a complete census. A new evaluation can change the count. This is why definitions came first. The test sample software engineering, difficult health questions, or closed-book knowledge. Each loss narrows a claim. None cancels another course's gains. Anthropic's own model overview still calls Fable its most capable, widely released model. That sentence matters more than a launch day victory montage. But I am still holding the recommendation. Highest capability and best everyday operating point are different decisions. So how can the most aligned model hallucinate more? Anthropic's automated behavioral audit probes deception, cooperation with misuse, reckless actions, and related failures. Opus 5 scored 2.3 on overall misaligned behavior, the lowest among Anthropic's recent models in that audit. Lower is safer on this chart. That is a meaningful safety result. It is not a warranty. On AA Omniscience, a closed-book knowledge test, Opus was more accurate than Opus 4.8. It also hallucinated more on that benchmark. That sounds contradictory only if alignment and factual calibration are the same dial. They are not. A careful employee can follow policy better and still remember a fact incorrectly. Better conduct does not make every memory correct. More attempted answers can also expose more chances to be wrong. Anthropic deploys Opus under its higher safety standard. It remains below Mythos on dangerous biology and offensive cyber evaluations. Some cyber tests disabled safeguards to measure underlying capability. That condition belongs beside the result. In the product, classifiers block narrow cyber categories. Flagged requests can fall back to Opus 4.8. However, Anthropic expects fewer interventions than Fable's stricter system. Approved defensive teams can use its verification program. Correction number 2 is precise. Most aligned in this audit does not mean least likely to hallucinate everywhere. Keep sources, tests, and human review wherever a confident error has consequences. And which product changes make those trade-offs usable? The practical change begins before the first token. Opus thinks by default, then uses effort to control the reasoning budget. Start at high, Anthropic says. Move down when your evaluation holds. Move up only when the task earns extra latency in tokens. Developers can change tools between turns without breaking the prompt cache. Imagine changing a workshop bench without throwing away the blueprint. Automatic fallbacks are also in beta. Instead of ending a flagged request, the API can route it elsewhere. The safety boundary becomes a controlled lane change. Fast mode is the expensive express lane. Use it when waiting costs more than compute, not for a job running overnight. Anthropic also published an interactive wind tunnel and cell illustration built by Opus 5. The public demos remain documented on official source pages with their capture dates. They demonstrate tool use, front-end composition, and iteration. They are product examples, not independent proof. The same rule covers launch page customer stories. They illustrate workflows, but they are selected early access testimonials. We now have the price, tests, losses, safety limits, and workflow changes. But which Claude should do which job? Here is the decision grid. Use Opus 5 for complex daily agents, serious coding, research, and enterprise work. Begin at high effort. Test lower effort on repeatable jobs. Savings count only when quality holds. Use Fable 5 when you need Anthropic's highest, widely available capability, and the last margin matters more than price. Anthropic's overview still gives Fable that crown. Use Sonnet 5 when volume, speed, and unit economics dominate. It is easier to scale when an Opus ceiling is unnecessary. Use Mythos through the invitation-only Project Glasswing for specialized defensive cyber work. The separate cyber verification program gives approved users less restricted access to Opus 5. Neither is a general upgrade path. Opus 4.8 remains a sensible fallback for a narrow classifier block or an integration that needs stability. Now, the verdict I held from the opening. Opus 5 is not universally better than Fable 5. It is more useful, more often. Why? It reaches the frontier on many hard tasks, beats it on some, and charges the old Opus rate. Its effort curve buys less reasoning when less is enough. That is the model math. Not intelligence divided by dollars. Completed, verified work divided by dollars. I want your boundary, not your favorite logo. What would make you pay double for Fable? Name the task and evidence in the comments. The best answer becomes a future test. But which benchmark claim survives a real project? That test needs our tools, our budget, and our grader.